I did it. I stayed up and watched all 5 episodes of part 1 of season 1 of Masters of the Universe Revelation. And I know this is beginning shredded online for He-Man being sidelined, Teela taking over, this just being another feminist SJW vanity project. Is it all those things? Well, we will get into that, but before I do, my latest comic book, Malevolent Rising issue number 5, is live on Indiegogo as of yesterday. I hope you go check it out. It came out really well. I also put together an art book, a sketchbook of never-before-seen drawings, some drawing from my own comic, sketches, things like that, also available on Indiegogo. I hope you give both of those a look. Now on with the review. So, as I said, Master of the Universe Revelation has been one of the more controversial things that Netflix has put out for a while. The fan base is really upset about it. A lot of the rumors that came out were unflattering. The press coming out about the show didn't seem to disprove any of those rumors in any way. So how did the end product, now that it's here, now that the day of reckoning is upon us, how did this show come out? Well, this is your warning. There's going to be some spoilers, especially from early episodes in the season, but I kind of have to give you the premise of what it is that we're dealing with here. So, we get Master of the Universe or Revelations from Kevin Smith, who is comic book superfan and gave us movies like Mallrats, Clerks, Chasing Amy, all of those. And just as far as my stake in Masters of the Universe, it's one of the first properties, one of the first fantasy IPs that I really got invested in as a little kid. So Master of the Universe is pretty close to my heart. I'm going to try to keep that as separate from my review as possible to stay objective. And on we go. So this is supposed to be a direct sequel from the 1980s Filmation He-Man and the Masters of the Universe cartoon. Now, you don't necessarily have had to have watched these episodes to really know everything. I mean, you're going to get a lot of Easter eggs and a lot of fun callbacks if you did. But as long as you have a working knowledge of what He-Man is and who his friends and enemies are, you're going to understand what's going on in this show, because it pretty much starts at a jumping on point for anybody who at least has a passing knowledge of the universe in general. So the show starts off with Teela, He-Man's longtime friend, is getting promoted to the Master of Arms, which is her father Duncan's position in the palace. So Teela in the old cartoon was the captain of the Royal Guard. Now she's being promoted to basically the War Master of Eternia, and her father is stepping down. So there's a big ceremony happening, and Adam, of course, is missing. During this time, Skeletor decides to launch his ultimate attack on Castle Grayskull. So his minions, his vehicles, every toy that existed in the 80s gets launched at Castle Grayskull, and there's a big battle that ensues. A bunch of He-Man side characters come charging in. He-Man himself transforms, gets Battle Cat. And this is, if you are a fan of He-Man, this is your time. This is the love letter that Kevin Smith said he was giving to Masters of the Universe fans. This about 10-minute sequence is what you get. So this is He-Man as I remembered it. This is a bunch of big heroic characters duking it out against villains, fighting over Castle Grayskull, the secrets held within, and everything else. Classic He-Man. That's the first 10-15 minutes of the show. Then things kind of start going off the rails. So Skeletor has discovered that Castle Grayskull is not really the treasure. The treasure is what's under Castle Grayskull. In fact, if anything, Castle Grayskull is a disguise. So he manages to unlock some ancient chamber within the castle, and he goes down into it, and he finds the doorway to the Citadel of Knowledge, which is... that's the treasure of Grayskull. It's the knowledge of the universe. It's the power of the universe. All of that combined, the power of Grayskull itself is this Citadel of Knowledge. And so he's down there. Teela goes down to confront him, but she's no match for Skeletor. So between Evelyn and Skeletor, she gets bested. And then He-Man shows up and joins the fight. And Skeletor and He-Man kind of start duking it out. And then one of He-Man's compatriots gets killed in the combat by Skeletor. He shows up as kind of one of the last lines of defense for Grayskull. Skeletor incinerates him, and He-Man goes a little rageful, and he goes and impales Skeletor with his power sword there. And as it turns out, this was part of Skeletor's plan. Skeletor is standing in front of the lock to the Citadel. The sword is the key. So when he stabs Skeletor, Skeletor then grabs the handle of the sword and pushes it through himself to unlock the chamber itself, revealing this magic source, this orb of knowledge. Skeletor then cracks it with his staff, And before everything go to crap, He-Man calls on the power of Grayskull one last time. His sword absorbs this magical energy explosion that was going to wipe out all of creation. And in doing so, explodes the sword into two halves. He-Man is gone. Skeletor is gone. So that's pretty much the end of that battle. And the rest of the episode is kind of the immediate fallout of learning that He-Man is dead, Skeletor is gone. The royal family obviously learns that He-Man was their son Adam. He's also gone. Teela realizes she's been lied to all her life by everybody, and she quits and leaves the palace. There's some really good character work in this scene, especially from the king when he learns that not only was his son was He-Man, but his closest advisor, the Man-at-Arms, knew and kept it from him all these years. Cool little scene. And then we go into the rest of the show proper, which really kind of just focuses on Teela gathering this band of characters, both good and evil, as they are trying to reforge magic. Because what has happened is magic in Eternia is dying as a result of this battle. And the Power Sword, which now exists in two halves, needs to be reforged so that magic can be put back in its proper place, because without it, Eternia dies, and Eternia is the center of the universe. If it dies, it's like the heart of the universe dying. Everything will go along with it. So Teela is reluctant to do this because, one, she wants that life left behind her. She has no love for magic and what it does to people. So the fact that she's asked, she gets to play the reluctant hero role. We get a mixed mash of characters from He-Man lore and some new ones, and they're going off on this quest. So here's where the meat of the show is, and here's where the complaints start. Now, there's not really much to spoil because the show ends on a bit of a cliffhanger. I won't go into that. If you want to watch it, you can see the cliffhanger. It's probably already spoiled online anyway, but so this group of characters encounters other characters from the Master of the Universe mythos as kind of what they become in this weird Mad Max post-apocalypse version of Eternia. Some characters have become religious prophets. Some characters have become warlords. Some characters have been driven mad. And some of them join them for a little time and then leave. Some of them end up becoming part of their band. But for the most part, it's these characters. It's Teela, it's Evelyn, it's Roboto, and it's Teela's friend here, who I cannot remember her name, who it's implied kind of have a relationship with. So that's the show you get. Now, had they sold this as from the beginning as what would happen on Eternia if He-Man and Skeletor were gone, that I think would have taken a lot of this from fans, because I think a lot of fans have a lot of expectations of what to believe in this show, and the idea that we're going to subvert those expectations so badly by pulling this hat trick of we're going to wipe He-Man and Skeletor out in the first 15 minutes of this entire series, that's a tough pill for fans to swallow if that's not what they're expecting. Because that's an interesting question. What would the Masters of the Universe be without He-Man and Skeletor? I kind of would like to know the answer to that, but I would have liked to have known that that was the show that's being sold to me, not this is He-Man, this is the continuation of the show that you liked when you were younger, get ready for that same kind of action. So I think the goal here was more to subvert expectations, and I think it backfired because, one, it got spoiled, and two, I don't think that's a great piece of wool to pull over the fans' eyes. So let's talk about the good in this show first. So, because there is good in this show. The idea of Teela having to be the one to accomplish this quest makes sense because even in old Master of the Universe canon, Teela's mother is the sorceress, the guardian of Grayskull, and she has failed. The sorceress failed in her duties, so it's going to pass on to the next, which is going to be Teela. She's the next in line. Teela does not want it, nor does she know that the sorceress was her mother. So this is all part of the quote-unquote revelation, if you will. So that she's going to have to be the one to restore magic. She's the guardian now. The sorceress's time is pretty much done. There is a specific episode, the Scareglow episode, which is really well done. Scareglow was a really cool character from the old action figure line that never really made it into the show that I ever recalled. He kind of came along too late in the line to make it into the old Filmation animated, so it's fun to see him kind of cut loose in that old world. And he was really legitimately pretty freaky. I liked this episode. This one was pretty cool. I thought he was a good villain. Another good thing is Alan Oppenheimer, the original voice of Skeletor, was brought back to voice this character, Moss Man. He doesn't have a big part in the series, but when he's in there, just for the nostalgia factor of hearing that voice, that very familiar tone of Alan Oppenheimer just eat up the scenery for the time he's on screen was really fun. He did a good job for Moss Man, so I thought good enough that it needed a special shout out in this review. And this show did its homework. I mean, it goes into a lot of Masters of the Universe lore that is something that a lot of super fans know about. I don't really consider myself a super fan of the Masters of the Universe, but I knew enough about it to know a bit of this whole history of Eternia and future of Eternia thing. That was something that the show and the line was going to go into had it continued. So we get to explore that a little bit in this new show. So that was fun. I enjoyed that for what it was. Was it handled perfectly? No. But the fact that they thought to include it and they handled it as faithfully as the circumstances they created allowed them to probably worked for me. Now we're going to have to get to the bad. So Teela herself. Teela's voiced by Sarah Michelle Gellar, who does a really good job. It gives her depth. It gives her emotional range when she needs it. That this kind of role is in Sarah Michelle Gellar's wheelhouse from her old Buffy days, and this idea of the strong female hero is no stranger for Gellar, and she pulls it off really well. The problem is the way she's written. Teela is written like almost any other of this new modern stereotype of the female character, of this flawless, nothing can stop you and there's nothing she can't overcome type of hero. Nothing really challenges Teela. The only thing that challenges Teela is what she allows to challenge herself. She's lost the ability to trust, which is kind of a flaw, but she kind of overcomes it fairly easily. I mean, everybody gains her trust pretty well. She ends up being pretty good with people. She doesn't keep her companions, even evil companions like Evelyn, she doesn't keep them at arm's length very well. She welcomes them in. They have this quest, and she just takes on the role of reluctant hero. There's not really a fight other than a few sentences spoken of, I really don't want to have to be the one to do this. And, well, you have to. Well, okay, since I can, I'm going to do it. That's kind of Teela's attitude in this whole thing. I would have liked to have seen Teela struggle a bit more with this idea. I would have liked to have seen Teela struggle a bit more about having to be now going from the captain of the guard to now the savior of eternity, taking He-Man's place. I would have liked to have seen her wrestle with that role, but it's almost like she can step into it with no problem at all, which, I get it, she's confident, but there's confidence, and then there's just an inhuman, weird personality. And I think that's what Teela's main problem is in this show. Next, the group itself. So this is really where those female-centric vibes come from. As you can see, the main characters are Teela, Evelyn, and Teela's companion here, whose name it just escapes me. And then there's Roboto, who's he plays a bigger role in the last couple of episodes, but for the most part, he's just kind of there. And he and Orko, and then ultimately like Beastman and a few other characters, they just kind of get led around by the girls. They're there when they need them. Beastman's dumb, Roboto's naive. They both have kind of comedy niches. They don't move the plot. Everything that happens in this plot has to do with the female characters, whether it's these three or the sorceress. Everybody else is just a side character. Everybody else is encountered. And so this is where I think a lot of the complaints become to get legit. This is where you start feeling like this is a boys aren't welcome club, and I get it. I don't think that's really what they meant it to be, but I get it. All of the girls are super powerful, or don't really have any flaws that they're dealing with. Evelyn has a few. Evelyn might be the best developed character in the series. I'll give her that. But as far as the rest of them, they're just boring. They're just cardboard. They're just stand-ins. They're there. They're supporting each other. They're kind of going where the plot needs them to go, doing what the plot needs them to do. Nothing challenges them. They overcome everything fairly easily. There's no conflict really within the group. I mean, there's a little bit, like when Evelyn's going to join them, there's kind of you're going to team up with Evelyn, and Teela, who's supposed to be the one that doesn't trust anybody, basically says, well, I trust my instincts. She's in with us now. So as you can see, it gets really inconsistent. It gets really hard to follow. And then that's where that criticism, that early criticism, starts to become justified. And that's probably the biggest sin of this show, which is this was a show that was a really good idea, that you can see where the message seeped in, that agenda seeped in. And the thing that I hate about modern Hollywood right now and the entertainment that they're giving us is that agenda is there, and you can tell when the writers are conceiving this and they're in the writing room and they're saying, what about this? How about this character? What if this character does this? What if this character does that? It's seen through this filter of, we don't want this gender to be represented this way, or we don't want a woman to seem weak, or we don't want a man to seem like he's taking charge, or we don't want the old stereotypical, hetero masculine He-Man character being centric in this show. And you can tell it's there, and you can tell it influenced the writing. You tell it influenced the final product, which is really bad, because this is something that, again, the idea of the Masters of the Universe world without He-Man and Skeletor, that's an interesting idea. It could have been done very well, but like a scratch on a really nice, expensive sports car, the agenda is there, and once you notice it, you can't not see it. It's everywhere. It permeates. It saturates every part of this show in one way or another, and it just, once that first domino falls of agenda, politics, and entertainment, it just takes everything else with it, and ultimately all you're left with is a good idea that's in the background being completely muddled and upstaged by the agenda politics that drove the creative decisions that made this show. And it's really a shame. It's a beautifully animated show. This voice cast may be one of the best I've seen in an animated program in a really long time. There were some good character moments, just a few characters interacting with each other. As I said before, the scene of the king finding out his son was He-Man and then confronting Man-at-Arms about it was really, it's heartbreaking. It was a great scene. Teela having to come to the realization that everyone that she grew up with lied to her. When you look at the people around her that knew He-Man's secret, and Adam being her best friend was He-Man, and she was kept in the dark by it, she felt betrayed. That was the only time when I really got legitimate emotion out of Teela that wasn't just annoyance of having to be the one that has to be the savior of Eternia. That was the good. But the bad is pretty close to what people said it was. Is this show as terrible as people say it is? Yes and no. No, in the fact that there is good writing here, there is good character work here, there's great voice talent here, the animation is stellar, and somewhere, if you could dig past all this garbage, somewhere there's a good story here. And Kevin Smith, he can still write characters, he still can structure a story, but you just see it filtered through this same prism that everyone was complaining about before the show came out, and it's there. And like I said, once you see it, you can't unsee it. It's there, and it bothers you the rest of the show. So, unfortunately, that's my review of Masters of the Universe Revelation. Give it a watch if you'd like, and if you have watched it, I'd like to know what you thought of it. Do you think my review is accurate? Do you think I missed anything? Do you think I was too mean on it? Do you think I was too easy on it? Let me know in the comments below and discuss your thoughts on not just the show, but Masters of the Universe in general. I'm a big fan of the old show, and I used to have a lot of the action figures. I loved it. So let me know your thoughts below. While you are doing that, please check out my Indiegogo, Malevolent Rising issue number 5. You can also get issues 1 through 4 on this campaign, as well as the sketchbook. So I hope you guys check that out, and I hope you guys have a really great day. Thanks for taking the time to discuss this with me. I really enjoyed it. I'll be back with some more videos soon, and until the next one, I will see you later. Bye.